So, cleaned this up. Really not sure whether it wants to go any more than that. I don't think so. So we're going to take it out. Taking about 60 thou off the rough old casting there. Give that a rub with a file and that'll be plenty flat enough for mounting on the tender body. I've chopped the end off this, which is probably a bit harsh, but according to the drawing there's enough room to machine this and put it back in the end there. So thought I'd move on with this. It's cleaned up somewhere near, it's about the same all the way around. I've fettled the casting up. Let's have a look over at the bench where there's some light. The drawings and so forth for this are pretty sort of obscure. Not a lot of information about this pump. So I've faced this off here. It's pretty straightforward. This is the tender pump. It goes in the back of here. And we've come to a bit of a standstill with the wheels this week. The only real part left to do, and I've spent a fair bit of time on these. You've got lots of nice movement here, or plenty I think. Springs are still a bit soft, but I think it'll follow along pretty easy, pretty good. I've made 6 little steel pieces today, and these need 10 BA bolts to bolt in here, but I haven't got any 10 BA bolts, so I'm waiting for them to come from Sydney, and they'll just be bolted on there, and that's what stops this coming out. So that's how that works. So when the bolts come, we'll bolt them up. You really need to drill one and then put the bolt in and then drill the other one just so they all line up. That's something to do. But basically we got this so that it really squeaky chair tonight. We've got this so that it rolls nice, how it should. Probably hasn't got that much travel, but certainly on a rough track it'll handle a bump like that, you know. So that's the idea. Now, when I ordered some 10 BA bolts, which are coming, also ordered some rivets to put this on. There's a bit of work in this, more than you think actually. So we need to rivet some brass angle down each side nicely first, just using, I think, probably copper rivets. And then we need to screw some more brass angle on the inside here, that way up, like so, all the way along. And then that base plate, the sole plate, is actually riveted to this, and then we can just undo the screws and lift it off if we need to. That's the theory. So a bit of work in that, but we need some rivets, so we're procrastinating that. These springs are pretty light, so make you a bit seasick I think at the moment. So this pump mounts here somewhere, and that's all that needs to be. Is good enough to screw down. It's got to have 4 screws in it. Probably doesn't even need 4 screws, but I put 4 in it. And it's got a pinhole here for the handle crank, and it needs to be bored through 9/16 or something like that. So that's the next job on that, is to bore it 9/16. I've probably got a 14mm reamer, which will do nicely. And it's got a stainless plunger in it. Then we'll machine this end here and drill it to fit in there, fit inside the 9/16 bore, and silver solder it back together. And that way, we've got a nice square corner, and we're not reaming into a blind hole, which doesn't fill me with a lot of joy, to be honest. So next thing will be to set this up in the 4-jaw, I guess, and drill him and ream him. Before we do that though, we'll have a look at what else we've done here. There is a bit of work that I have done. I've machined and profiled all the tyres and the wheels. Fairly basic thing. I didn't get any video of it, but the wheels are machined on the back. Hold them on the flanges and machine them on the back flat. And I've also machined a bit of a recess in there too, so that there's some clearance, or so that they look nice, or so that the paint looks good over the spokes. And it also helps to get the spokes all fettled nicely and round and looking good, because you're only guessing otherwise. Then they set up on the flanges, and the faces are machined, and the bosses. And then I made a faceplate, which is very, very simple. Basically, I reamed them and put that on there and did the bolt up. And friction on the back here on the tyre was plenty enough to profile the tyres. So that's what we've done. They got a little bit of tape on them. Stania said, or LBSC said, Stania said that was a bit of a mitt and they didn't really need it, but that's what they got anyway to match the other existing ones. Axles are 10mm silver steel, and they're machined between centres each end. Bit fussy and a lot of messing around, but got them all back-to-back clearances right, and I'm really pleased with that. Everything looks pretty good. And then comes all the fun bits, like making these fit. These have just got leaf springs in underneath them. These have just got coil springs in underneath them. They're a bit light, but they certainly spin nicely on angles and bends and things, so they should be all right, I think. A bit heavier springs and keepers on them, or horn stays across here, and you've got the makings of a chassis, I guess. This isn't too warped here. I sort of had to adjust it a bit because it was a bit wide in the middle, and I've actually bent it in so there's the same distance all the way through, and I'm pretty pleased about that. And this has got probably more end play than it really wants, because I'm nervous about that, and it won't hurt. So everything's got to be nearly worn out to be any good before you start, and before, if it's going to run properly and not derail too many times. So I'm getting there, I think. So that's state of play at the moment. Horn stays are next on this, and we might pump, and if we get the pump and the sole plate on, then we're certainly starting to look like we've got an actual locomotive tender, which I really like. So there we go. Might call it a night for tonight, but next job is to set this up and bore it, and I guess we can do all sorts of things then, like make a piston and machine this head with the seats for the balls and the nuts and things, and some arms and cranks and a lever. the lever's got an extension arm on it so that it comes out through the hole in the top of the tank, and you can close the lid again when you take it off. This is really only an emergency or a filling pump for when the engine's cold. So anyway, that's what's happening. Spent a fair bit of time on this. This lasted a while. I've had 3 days lockdown, so thought we'd make some progress, and we certainly have. And I'm pretty pleased with it. So the drawing says 1/2 inch, and I haven't got a 1/2 inch reamer, and the other drawing in the book says 9/16, and we could probably get away with 9/16 for this, but I've gone through there nicely at 12.5. So it was easy enough to hold. It's pretty concentric, nice round true casting, so I just held it in 3 draw, seemed to be the best way to do it. And as long as it's somewhere near parallel, it really doesn't matter. Got a bit of a burr there where it's broken through. And we've got a half reasonable bore there. And a lot lighter casting. What we find is that when we set it up, that this plate isn't exactly square, so we're going to have to think about how to clean that up nice. It's a little bit taller there and a bit taller there, and it's still got flashing marks on it. So that's a good start. This needs some holes in it, is about all that this part really needs apart from this. I might, when I make the rams fraction tight, I might lap that a bit. But it needs a hole here for the arms to pivot the ram, and needs 4 holes to bolt it down. And I think that's that bit sort of nearly finished. So, been a bit slack with filming, and we've got quite a lot of progress. I think where we left off, golly, what were we doing? This pump, which had some issues, and the original casting didn't survive, unfortunately. This wasn't straight up and down here. And I tried to bend it and it didn't work out, so I fabricated a new one. We've got a new pump. Pump's complete. It's got a ball in the top and a ball in the bottom. Basically the water sucked through the bottom, pushed out the top. The way the pump works is when this comes back, it sucks water through the non-return valve at the bottom. This one, of course, is sitting on a seat, so it can't suck water or let water back through this way. And when you push the plunger in, it can't push it out the bottom, so it pushes it out the top, and so on. Stainless steel ram with an O-ring on it, and these pieces are all brass, and there's little stainless steel pins, one there, and one there, with cotters in them. So that's all bolted on. These bolts here, the steel ones, probably won't be like forever bolts, because I think they need to be brass, and this is inside the water tank. I've made up a fitting here that goes through, which is basically just a double union with a nut on the bottom to hold it, and this pipe needs to go through to the front buffer beam for to the boiler. or through the water system anyway. This base plate's been done. It's got angle riveted on the bottom and soft soldered, the higher temperature solder so it doesn't let go later. And I had problems with this because it buckled up, but we've managed to fix that, I think. So that's where we're at. Starting to look pretty good. As far as the underneath, these actually bolt on with 4 little short 5BA bolts each side, and there will be bolts through from the top here, one here and one here. There will be bolts through from the top, one here and one here, and the same on the other end here, just to make sure nothing moves. Been cutting some brass, and these are all held together just with brass angle, and they're 8BA screws from the inside, and they'll be cleaned off flush afterwards. But to give you some idea, we'll move back a bit. Some idea, this is the size of it. It's not a stainless tender, so there's no curve over the top, and it's not full height. It's actually a Fowler tender, which is prototypical, and it's only 3,500 gallon. So it's quite a bit older technology than the rest of the locomotive. Not sure why this is, but the one that survives in preservation actually has this tender, and I think it was quite common for them to run with the Fowler tender. So these sides go on here like this. We've got these little horn stays all fitted, 6 of them with 10BA bolt screws in them, so that all works. These still need some adjustment, because when you screw this together, this bit of buckle that's in the inside frames here closes up, and this centre axle is just a fraction tight, so we're going to need to mess with that with a file for a bit, but we'll get a bit more done on the superstructure first. We've got another sheet of 1.2 brass, which is 300 by 400. And it's had Durex on it at some point, which is a bit of a pain. It was a few years ago, because it's a while since I bought this, and I think it was put on there to ship it. So a little bit of discoloration here. That, of course, eventually a bit of steel will fix. Probably some solvent and pull it off, but I don't know what one. Anyway, so looking at the drawing, there's not very much information here, to be honest. What we need to cut out of this sheet first is this piece that goes through here like this, which is the top of the tank, and that's the longest piece out of this, so it has to be 6 inches and 275 thou wide, and it's got a couple of bends in it, but we won't worry about that just yet. I think the first thing will be to cut this out of this sheet, and I've only got scroll saw to do that, so it's going to be a bit slow. And then from the rest we need to cut this end and this piece on top. It's a good start, so let's see how we go with it. So a few more hours, and what we've got to close this video, where we're at with this is that we've run out of anglement. We've got a piece up this corner, and we've just put 8BA bolts in these. We've got a piece up this corner, and we've just put 8BA bolts from the inside, and we're going to solder them. Whether we actually leave these bumps in here or not, I'm not sure. They don't look too bad, but probably they're going to get cleaned off afterwards. Looking at the front, got this front sheet in. There's a brake tower, so a brake handle here. I'm not sure what else is on the tender, but it's got a brake handle for sure. And it's got a cutout in here. Then we'll put a piece of angle through here, and there'll be a piece in the top here that lifts out just for cosmetics with the doors on it. So you can lift it out and use the locomotive and put it back on for display. I think there's quite a lot of angle to go through here, to fit this piece, which is the, have a look, this is the top of the tank, and that just screws in afterwards. So we've got that made up. Ordered some angle and stuff, but there's still a fair bit to go here. There's some pipes. This pipe's got to be hooked up with a connection through to the front, and there's also a pipe for the other pump with a filter on it, which needs to go in here somewhere as well. So at the moment, that's what we've got, and that's the state of play. So thought I'd upload a video, say thanks for watching, and thanks heaps for all your support, guys. This will go on Patreon, and at some point I might air it on YouTube, because I know everyone's a bit interested in this, and I've had a lot of comments saying, why don't you film this? But there's a fair bit of work in it, and just filming episode after episode after episode of builds is not only eats into my workshop time, but it also gets a bit repetitive and boring, especially when you're making 6 or 10 of everything. Last job is these buffers, and we got these sorted. We'll turn this around again, so we're looking at the back of it. And these are spring loaded, of course. I haven't really got the correct springs for them yet, but they've still got to have a bolt that threads through here and is pinned over on the front, and these go through here, and they've got the sliding bolts down inside the hole, so it doesn't actually touch on anything inside. That's the answer. These have got little steps on them, and there's 2 of them, so they're done. These ones too, for the front of the locomotive, they've been done too. A little bit different, they stick through, so with the bolt that goes all the way through, but they're done as well. So next job is to make a square, I guess a drill jig for these out of 01 or something like that, and then I can drill all these pretty easily, and I can drill all these plates, and we can put 6BA bolts in the corners, and have all these bolted on nice, ready to go. So lots of progress, starting to look like a tender. I'm really pleased with that, and thanks for watching, and we'll get another update out pretty soon if all goes to well.